Yeah, I'm muting myself. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, great. Well, hi gents, hi everyone. I think we have a couple of people flowing in already. So we're just gonna give everyone a couple of minutes to just hop on while we get this rolling. But we're live already. Awesome. So great to have you both here, Ishwar, Aman. Thank you for taking the time. I know coordination's not been easy in this, but it's always great to, meet other founders and chat about how the industry is moving and how we collaborate. So very excited about this conversation.
Pleasure is mine, man. Looking forward to the conversation too.
Perfect.
Likewise, really looking forward to the conversation.
Great. And I think, Aman, it's been what, how long has it been since you moved into the Exotel family?
I think it was announced in the second week of November. So
Okay.
About 5 months, four and a half months, you can say.
Perfect. Very interesting. Cool. I think we have about 20 odd people already, and I think more will join in. So I want to be respectful to everyone who's joined in and then start on time. So welcome everyone to one of Squad IQ's webinars with Exotel this time, where we're talking about humans and AI together in improving your sales funnels. I think it's a very, very interesting, very powerful topic, very heavy topic as well. There is a lot to cover. And each aspect, each module in our webinar can be broken down and hopefully will be broken down into multiple subsections in future conversations. But I have two extremely capable individuals with me to take us through this and talk about what are some of the things that we as businesses can and should be doing in order to improve conversions across our sales funnels. So on that note, give me one quick second and I'm going to share my screen and get this ball rolling. So, all right. Are you all able to see my screen right now?
Yes, Rishabh.
Perfect. I am not able to see. Okay, there you go. All right. Just getting this set up. Sorry about that. All right, perfect, great. Well, thanks everyone. If you can see our screens, welcome to this webinar. Avoiding a leaky sales funnel by leveraging humans and conversational AI, to be more specific. I think very, very, very important topic. I think key takeaways before we jump into more details. Let me actually reduce the size of this thing so it's not bothering us as much. So first things first, before we go in, I want to talk about what we're going to talk about and what is the end result of this webinar. So we're going to talk about all the challenges that sales teams face. And this could be B2C, B2B. Typically, we're more talking about B2C companies right now, but the challenges are very similar in B2B, and much more in-depth. We're focusing on sales funnel, various challenges. We're focusing on how do we optimize each aspect of your sales funnel using both sales and AI, humans and AI. And how does the combination actually work? What are best practices? What are common challenges? What are common mistakes that you should avoid? So there is possibly about 30, 40 years of maybe more experience, at least on this panel, and I'm sure in this room a lot larger, where we're going to talk about how this has evolved and gone from there. First things first, quick introductions from our speakers. Ishwar, would you just take a minute to talk to us about, you, and we all know you very well now, but I think the audience would love to hear from you.
Will do. Thanks, Rishabh. And before I introduce myself, I think it's a very heavy topic that we've chosen today. We are almost talking about the future of sales tech, right?
Correct.
How do humans and AI interact? So I'd like to cover as much as possible, or condense it as much as possible. But thanks for having me on board. Audience, my name is Ishwar. I'm one of the co-founders of Exotel. I take care of operations. So Exotel is India's largest customer engagement platform. And I'm here to specifically talk about my experience with AI, primarily coming from customer experience background, which is support, delivery, and so on. And to also bring in the HR flavor. Where is the future headed in terms of salespeople in terms of attracting salespeople and how salespeople and AI will be able to work together. So excited to be here. Thanks, Rishabh.
Thanks, Ishwar. Aman, great to have you here, and congratulations on the movement to Exotel first up. But yeah, tell us more about you.
Sure. So, hello everyone. This is Aman Goel. I'm the founder of Cogno AI. So Cogno AI is a leading conversational AI platform, and we sort of specialized in the financial services space. But now going with the support from Exotel, we are expanding to multiple sectors. So in financial services space, we work with a lot of large enterprise clients. Think of ICICI Group, Kotak Group, State Bank Group, HDFC Group kind of companies. Like I lead all the customer facing activities, sales, operations, customer success here at Cogno.
Wonderful.
So really looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Aman. So like you're a hardcore founder doing everything right now.
Yeah, I mean, much I would say early stage as compared to Exotel. So things like hands into many different things.
So that's always the best way to get things going. Thanks, Aman. Great to have you here. I'm Rishabh. I'm one of the co-founders and the chief business officer of Squad Stack. We're the parent company of Squad IQ. At Squad IQ, we run one of India's largest B2C fully managed sales outsourcing platforms. So we help you set up a sales team that is remote, secure, high ROI. Been longtime partners with Exotel, and very, very fortunate to have built that partnership, and we did. Yeah, so very, very excited. Primarily working in very similar segments as Cogno and Exotel, financial services, D2C, EdTech, etc. So primarily very, very B2C focused, but very excited to take this conversation forward with these two. So I think let's jump right into it. Humans and AI, we hear about it a lot. I think the largest space that we need to remember in all of this is that AI doesn't replace the human, and human alone can only scale so much, and AI doesn't really replace the human. So they're better together. I think that's the fundamental takeaway that you always have to remember when you're deploying any kind of automation in any process whatsoever. Sales is obviously a very, very critical aspect of processes that we look at. Idea is to augment humans, as Aman would say. He's been deploying this for a while now. And we primarily focus on the human side of things. And we know that AI can play a certain role and humans do play a certain role. So if we were to break it down, on humans and AI aspects of sales, you have humans who are either you have salespeople primarily, and you have sales managers. Those are the two core humans at a fundamental level in every sales team, right? Your salespeople are for personalization, driving deeper context, building stronger relationships, and almost being like an advisor to your buyer. Because as modern buyers, I'm sure Ishwar Aman would agree, at least we're modern buyers, a lot of other modern buyers already know enough about your product by searching online. And this isn't true for B2B, it's also true for B2C. So when they're coming to you, they want someone to help you solve their problem versus pitch something that they already have read, 3 or 4 times. So that's your salesperson, which is more of the helper advisor for the modern buyer. And your sales manager is someone who is training this person to be the best version of themselves. So great salespeople join, and it's true for anything, but great salespeople join a team and leave a manager. And that's true for sales managers as well. They have a lot of work that they need to do. And there is a lot of sales tech out there that can improve the sales manager, but doesn't necessarily replace the sales manager. Be it on the AI side, we're going to get into a lot more detail on this with Ishwar and Aman, but broadly, 3 or 4 categories that we can put it in. One is the conversational, which is bots talking to your prospects on your behalf. Then that's one area, be it chatbots, voice bots, all of those pieces that Aman's going to talk about. We've got then a whole chunk of unstructured to structured data conversion. So you can't listen to all calls. So you have a lot of call monitoring to understand quality of your salespeople, understand coaching insights, and so on. And then at the same time, those calls are voice of customer. They're very rich in insights as to why your customers are buying your product, why they're not buying your product. So you need to jump into that and understand and find those patterns. And lastly, it's a big piece on sales analytics, which Ishwar is going to talk about more as we go ahead, which is revenue operations, forecasting, lead scoring, sales assistance, all of those pieces where AI does play a massive role. So these are the broad categories that we put humans and AI in sales. But I think obviously the biggest important point here is why do we need AI in sales is because salespeople are very hard to find and train and recruit. Ishwar, we were talking about this before our conversation. Yeah. And there's something that we keep hearing all the time, I'm sure. What has been your experience in this?
So I think not too long back, coming from the HR background, not too long back, tech people were the hardest talent to find, recruit, retain, and so on, right? So you remember all those superbike times. But I think that the trend has now moved on to good salespeople. Good salespeople are extremely difficult to find. They're extremely costly. They know where they have to go to. And you don't want good salespeople to spend their time on things like training the next level of salespeople and so on.
Correct.
So I think there is a whole bunch of, so at this point in time, personally, I would say hiring good salespeople is the biggest problem that we have in Exotel, at least. Perhaps you share the same thing. I don't know.
I've spoken to hundreds of people. It's the same problem everywhere. So no questions there. But I think also, Aman, out of curiosity, I know AI has had its evolutionary journey, right? There was a wave initially, which was the early adopter phase. And then it's sort of now gotten more and more mainstream. What's been your experience in this journey and how it's evolved? And what have you seen gone from, like the chatbots that could not handle exceptions to now them being much more versatile and, capable?
So, Rishabh, two things have happened in these last 4 or 5 years. Number one, the depth has increased, which means, let's say, take a use case of sales enablement using conversational AI. Now it can enable better. So that is the first part. Think of chatbots in customer support. Previously, they could handle FAQs. Now they could handle customer journeys. Now they could handle backend, fetching data from the backend systems, integration with CRMs and other systems, right? So in going deeper, things have become better. Second is that conversational AI has also become wider. So now these chatbots are not only helping in customer-facing processes, but also in employee-facing processes. Customers, like our clients, are deploying chatbots for recruitment. Recruitment is much like sales. You got to persuade a job applicant as much as you are persuading a prospect.
Right.
So internal use cases like chatbots for field agents. Right. So all those use cases have also evolved horizontally. So one is the vertical, which has improved, and also the horizontal improvement has happened in terms of applicability and use cases.
Right. Very interesting. So we're almost saying that, look, salesperson plus AI is better sales. Harder to find salesperson, AI is getting better. Find that balance. Wonderful. Let's jump. Let's go right ahead. I think we have someone in the audience raising their arm. Sir, if you have a question, can you please put it on chat, and we'll take up all questions towards the end. Thank you. And I'm hoping that's why you're raising your hand. And if there's something else, please put it on chat, and we're going to address it. So let's talk about buyer journeys. So we talked about this a little bit early on, but every product, B2C, B2B, is moving towards a digital buyer journey, because your buyers have access to the internet. They're reading your content, they're reading your marketing, they're getting references, they're seeing you everywhere they go. So they are already learning a lot before they are coming to your buyer journey, coming and becoming a part of your buyer journey. And be it, B2C, where we have all of these fintech apps, all our common customers, Aman, will have these beautiful UX apps, beautiful apps with beautiful UX. But even on the B2B side, Exotel, I imagine, Ishwar, where you have people coming to your sales team who already understand a very high degree of your product before they even show up to that first sales conversation. And this is where the evolution, full story is there for you to track that. So there, obviously, already know enough. So you can't just pick up the phone, sir, my product does X, and so you should buy. They already know what your product does to a great degree. They're coming to you with a problem statement, which is why your salesperson now has to act as a consultant or an advisor versus them just coming in and going with a spiel of this is what we do. And it may work with very specific cases where someone needs more hand holding, but more often than not, your modern buyer is a lot smarter and has evolved than what they used to be. Now, where does sales come into this buyer journey, right? Like if someone's already educated enough from the marketing point of view, do we still even need sales? That's a question that comes up a lot actually, often, where people would say, but I'm going to do my journey completely digitally, so I may not need a salesperson. And that is a future I look at. But I'm not so sure if that future exists, at least anytime soon. I don't know about you, Ishwar or Aman, if you've seen that play out. But I always see that combination being a good one where you have that balance. But love to get your take on this.
So when we started Exotil, that's exactly what we thought will happen. We wanted people to come in, log into the website, create a trial account, experience a journey themselves by pay using a credit card and go live. The product driven sales, they call it, right? It does happen to some percentage of the population. But a significant amount of folks still have questions. They might know what they want, but the devil is in the details, right? How do I do this? How do I do this integration? What kind of reports am I getting? How am I supposed to derive insights out of my reports? These are where these are important insights. So that is number one. Number two is also understanding the intent of the buyer.
Exactly.
Do they want to buy it now? Do they want to buy it 3 months later? Do they want to buy it 6 months later? I think this is where your AI and your human beings come into the picture. So over a period of time, we've realized that human beings and bots are here to stay in the sales journey.
Yeah. Wonderful. No, that's a great point. I mean, I look at it as at least just based on the data that we have seen, it's almost like you're doing product-led onboarding, be it B2C or B2B. You have a product journey and someone drops off at some point in that journey. That is where a bot or a human gets deployed and carries that user through the rest of the journey through different interventions, be it digital or through an inside sales team, for example. But ultimately, based on the data, you need both. At least what we have seen is that a good DIY product-led journey combined with a high quality sales team delivers great conversion rates. What happens when you have great conversion rates? You have more money to spend on your marketing and lead generation, which means, and you have a higher conversion rate, which means more dollars into the door, which creates a beautiful virtuous cycle, which lets you grow 2 to 3 times every year. And that's literally been the difference between any high growth B2C company, at least speaking of just B2C alone, any high growth B2C company that we've seen deploying that 1-2 punch of good DIY journey, good sales team, and when I say sales team, I mean AI plus human combined. I don't just mean salesperson alone, but DIY journey plus that versus just relying on a DIY or a product-led journey alone is what we've seen. And in B2B as well, we've seen that with play out with Slack and Zoom and so many others. So it's not too different as to how those two things come together. So I think being very intentional about how you craft your buyer journey becomes very, very important as you think about deploying a salesperson plus AI in any part of your funnel.
I'll add a small point to that.
Go ahead, Aman, please.
I think it's worth figuring out if your product is a car which the customer can drive by their own, or is it an aeroplane, which mandatorily requires a pilot, or requires the customer to spend 6 months of training, right? So, like in our case, when we target large financial institutions, it's almost always an aeroplane sale, high ticket size, and comes with support resources who are helping in not just sort of getting the order, but also in the onboarding activity. So that way also businesses can take a decision on whether they should have an online journey or whether they should have salespeople.
Absolutely. I think, Aman, I think just to add on to that point, I mean, we speak of B2B experiences and we're very similar like that. But even on the B2C side, I think, let's say we look at a financial services company, a wealth management firm, a brokerage. Even there, 2 out of 3 people that you're onboarding are new to the market. They have absolutely no idea what the share market looks like, what mutual funds are looking like, etc. So while you still have a beautiful app that tells you, hey, you can come trade here and you can make money and you can save better and so on, you still need, because it's matters of money, you sometimes still need someone to come in and educate you or chat with you to help you understand why something is important and how do you get me onboarded. So regardless of, I think even B2B obviously is there, but even one other dimension I'd add to what you said, which was product, but I'll also say consumer level of education or readiness maybe that we can add to that perhaps.
Right, absolutely.
Perfect. So I think speaking of buyer journeys, what goes wrong? Right? Like, let's talk about, and I think this goes back to Ishwar's earlier point on, building and managing sales team and Excel is really difficult right now. It's same problem everywhere. So what goes wrong in your sales funnel, right? Ultimately, people, your funnel is leaky, right? People are dropping off either at the top, middle, bottom. I'm not going to go into more details about what a sales funnel looks like, but let's say you have people leaking at different points in the funnel. More often than not, if it's related to your sales team, it's always a question of quality of your sales team. Every sales team has a Pareto principle, 80-20 rule from what I have seen. You have 20% of your best performers really hitting quota and doing really well. You have your middle tier performers who are somewhere there doing okay, skirting through, but you'll keep them. And then you have your bottom 30% who are not really cutting it and will not really survive the next quarter or the next 6 months in your journey. But building, training, managing a sales team is one of the most difficult problems that any sales manager or leader today faces, which is why all the more reason that you invest in AI and make your salespeople more productive. But other than that, specifically on the funnel, there are different aspects that can impact your funnel leakages. For example, and this is something that is like speed to lead, like how quickly do you reach your customers, has a dramatic effect on how much your connectivity is. And I think, Aman, to your point, I think this is where AI can actually make a difference, where a human is not available to reach a customer very quickly, right? But reaching to a customer very quickly is table stakes. In industries, specifically in the US, there are companies that reach out to your customers within 4 seconds of them becoming a lead. 4 seconds is the time it takes for you to become a lead and you to get a call. There are a very few companies in India who are actually have been able to get to that point. But typically, if you're able to manage to reach your customers, even within the first hour of them signing up, it has a huge difference. If it's the first 5 minutes, it makes a massive difference. And sometimes you need a human to call. Like they want to talk to a human. Sometimes, they will talk to someone on chat as well. But reaching out to your customers, very important. Following up, very, very critical. After hours following up. Your sales team is working 9 to 6, but your customers are also in their office 9 to 6. What do you do after 6 p.m.? Right? Like no one's following up. Your salespeople have also gone home. What do you do then? Sales productivity, I think, is linked to building training. So I'm not going to go deep on that. But customer feedback is a big one. Ishwar, Aman, any thoughts on this in terms of like what have you seen at your end on how does customer feedback impact the sales funnel? I have some thoughts here, but I wanted to sort of see what you guys have in mind there.
Aman, why don't you go first? I'll follow up after that.
Sure. So see, many times what happens is that in solutions, so there is a difference between selling a product and selling a solution. Specifically when selling, so I will talk about relatively large enterprises. In the sales process, oftentimes we discuss with the customer where we help them solution the whole implementation. Like you mentioned, right? One should not pitch the product, one should provide a solution. When it goes to a higher authority for some sort of approval, they have their own feedback in the process where they feel that some things might not be feasible or some things might just be too ambitious in the phase 1 of implementation. So again, that feedback has to be incorporated into the conversation. If it goes further higher up, we may find a roadblock altogether. Maybe this is again large buyers which have multiple teams evaluating the product. Could be IT, could be information security, So the feedback has to be incorporated from all the stakeholders and has to be positioned. The solution has to be positioned in such a way that all of them approve it. And that's why I think it's important. In many of the cases, we have seen some team might act as a showstopper if their inputs are not taken into consideration. So definitely this is very important.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And salespeople should be aware of navigating through stakeholders, incorporating everyone's feedback.
Right. Very interesting. We've seen this in B2C as well, where someone, salesperson is talking to a customer and the customer is like, why do I need this product? Or how do you differentiate you versus them? And if that keeps coming up consistently, everyone, including the product team, needs to know what that looks like so that you can improve the product, because beyond the point, the salesperson can only sell the product that is available to them. Unless the product gets better, sales doesn't really have a lot that they can go on. So there's almost like voice of customer aspect also coming back to, the product team, the support team, everyone. So to understand, here's what people are talking about, here's what they need, and go build it. Because so many times a product team is looking at sales for inputs, and sales is like screaming all the time, make this feature, do this, do that. This actually helps make that data more real, I think, in so many respects. So yeah.
So Rishabh, I think there is also a more subtle way in which customer feedback comes into the picture. We've been working with a lot of companies to do conversational AI bots into their sales process, support processes. A lot of people do this mistake of saying, I want 100% of the conversations to go through a bot. It doesn't work that way, right? So there are certain critical paths where you need human intervention. For example, if you look at the Exitel context, if there is a customer whose call is not getting connected, there is a chat that the person has with the bot. My call is not getting connected. At that point in time, there are two choices you can make. You can either let the bot answer it, or you can immediately connect it to a human being who can actually do the debugging and fix a problem for you right then and there. So I think, firstly, we need to be very clear on when do you need to bring in bots, when do you need to bring in human beings. That is very important. And you need to keep visiting this, revisiting this sales flow, or the sales path
journey,
and see where the dropouts are happening and consistently keep improving it.
Makes sense. No, absolutely agree. I think ultimately customer experience, I think, is the overarching umbrella. You still want to deliver a great experience, regardless if it is being delivered by a bot or a human. Ultimately, that can't go away. Absolutely agree with you. I think new remote procedures, obviously, there's a lot of onboarding. There's a lot of pieces like that where, again, bots can come in handy. And manual time-intensive processes like lead qualification, again, is an area where bots can come in handy. Someone can have a conversation with a human to understand timeline, need, specifications, and then pass off that feedback to a salesperson so that they can only work on ready-to-go leads. I think lead qualification is a great example of using bots. At the same time, sometimes you still need a salesperson in lead qualification where you have a lead that is slightly colder, where it is outbound lead qualification, maybe where you need to generate interest as well as qualify the lead. Versus, let's say, when you have an inbound lead coming in who's already has a certain degree of intent, where they're more ready to have a conversation with someone, then they're willing to talk to, or it's like they're talking to a human, but they're willing to talk to a bot and then give those inputs. Versus on the outbound, they may have a lot more questions which a salesperson needs to answer. So you have a SDR or a role like that is doing that. So again, there, being intentional about it, is it inbound, outbound, plays a lot of difference. So I think coming to solutions, right? Like, what does it actually mean to deploy this in the context of your sales funnel? Now, this is obviously by no means a one-size-fits-all approach. And even when we all sit here and talk about this, there will be many strategies that you have done, or people in the audience have done, or others have done, that have actually worked better than what we've talked about here. So if you have thoughts there, please share with us on chat and Q&A. This is something that, at least based on our experience across several hundred customers, we have seen working really well. But again, no strategy is one size fits all. You have to pick and choose what makes sense for you. And for everything else, where you have questions, you have experts here on this panel who can help. So, or you can reach out to us at any time. But ultimately, deploying a solution to the first point, which is understanding the funnel, to Ishwar's last point, which was keep going back to those user journeys, right? Understand where those drop-offs are happening. So start at the top, look at your overall funnel. Am I losing people at the top? Am I losing people in the middle? Am I losing people at the bottom? And once you identify those gaps, all you really need to do is improve each funnel by 5% every quarter, and your conversions will go through the roof. I mean, that's very idealistic atomic habits view of the world, but it does happen. So understanding where that drop-off is happening, and then based on that understanding, going very deep into that funnel. So pick one funnel. Let's say it is top of the funnel lead to lead qualification. Leads are coming in. Why is that drop-off happening? Is it that we're not connecting with a lot of people, right? Maybe sometimes it's the not connecting with a lot of people. The ones we're connecting with are saying they're not interested, or they're saying, well, I'm not sure why I signed up, or why are you calling me? All of those things can happen. Let's say they're not connecting. Then you go back and see how quickly are we calling them? How often are we calling them? Are we following up? Are we following up with an omni-channel strategy? Are we calling, texting, WhatsApp? Are we using all the channels at our capability? Are we remarketing to people that are dropping off? So go high level and then go very deep, because unless you go deep, you will not be able to solve those problems. So understanding and being very intentional about which funnel you need to improve, go look at all the specific aspects, have some hypothesis, then go look at your data, and then come back and start testing those insights. Similarly, when you have things like calls, where let's say it's the middle of the funnel, people are talking to my salespeople, and then 3 out of 10 salespeople are fine, 7 out of 10 salespeople are not fine. Let's say that is your scenario. That means then at that point, you need to be intentional about understanding what those salespeople are doing or not doing on your calls. You need to understand not just what they're not doing, you also need to understand what your best salespeople are doing. You need to analyze all of those calls and then solve that problem. Now, typically this is done by a QA team. That is, one for every 25 salespeople, you're able to listen to one call a day, but that's not scalable. Beyond the point, your QA person is also a human. They will realize that this individual salesperson is good, so they will start marking all their calls as good. This does happen. So I'm not making this up. This actually happens. They're like, yeah, Ishwar's a good sales guy. I'm going to just mark, yeah. 80% of the time, Ishwar gets the high score. So there's a lot that you can do there, which is where, again, there is technology available where you can mine those data points to see what is it that good salespeople are doing and what is it that not good salespeople are doing or not doing, and then calibrate those accordingly. At the same time, you can also measure what customers that are saying no, what are they saying? That also can be part of the measurement. Then based on that, you sort of start to deploy AI for routine communications for a lot of the journeys where you believe that a bot intervening can actually have a huge difference. Then you have those handoffs between humans and between the AI and the human, which is very critical. You have to be very intentional about this, because I'm sure Aman and Ishwar are going to talk about this in terms of challenges that people face. But not having a clear strategy as to when to hand off, what situations to hand off, what context has to go when the handoff happens, what are the SLAs of the salesperson when the handoff happens, because the end consumer still needs a good experience. That becomes very, very critical. When that handoff happens, who are you handing it off to? Do you have a good sales team available? Are they skilled? Are they available? Are they capable of handling this? Do they have the context? If your bot had a conversation with a human, and the human comes in and has the same exact conversation with the lead, then the lead is going to get angry, right? I'd imagine that to be the case. And I've had situations where I've been on support conversations where someone called me and literally asked me, sir, can you tell me what happened? And I'm like, I just sent you 3 emails telling you exactly what happened. Now you want me to repeat myself all over again, and the same thing will happen. So context, right skill, availability, are they prepped? Are they equipped to handle this? Are they ready to handle those objections? So those are all considerations that you need to have. And I know this is a really long list, but you need to be intentional about each one of these. From here on now, we'll go into specifics on the AI side a lot more with Aman, talking about exactly what this looks like, how does it work, what are the different aspects of, what are different technologies that are available that you can actually start to deploy. So Aman, over to you.
Sure, thanks, Rishabh. So first, I will give you sort of a brief overview of the scope of conversational AI, right? What are the areas where it can help? The first part is basically automating the conversations, which means where uh, humans are offline, unavailable, like let's say outside working hours, or there is a shortage of humans, right? When the business grows exponentially, you are always trying to ramp up hiring. So these are the places where conversational AI can help. So so I'll give you an idea. If you plot the frequency of the queries that a business gets on the y-axis and the complexity on the x-axis, which means this whole segment is low complexity queries. This is what AI can handle very easily. The high complexity queries, they need to go to human agents typically. And high complexity, high frequency query means you are not in the right business, to be very frank. I mean, it's a bad situation to be in. So a lot of queries of high complexity is bad for your business, right? So AI and automation helps in automating, conversational AI helps in automating the low complexity queries. The second part is where the queries are going to humans, right? So humans obviously can handle a multitude of situations, corner cases, exceptions, which technology is reaching there. I mean, we are yet to reach there. I mean, not just Cogno, the technology in general. So there, at those places, technology can assist these humans. I'll give you a simple example. There are solutions in the market which listen to the calls in real time, and they convert the voice into text, right? And now on this text, you can do a lot of processing. Say, for example, I get a call from a bank for pitching a credit card product. Now, the first thing is the call should start with "Good morning, Aman," right? So if they are not doing in text, you can, using natural language processing, you can check that. At the end of the call, the agent should say, "Hi, Aman, is there anything else I can assist you with?" If they are not saying, again, the software can flag. So these are the things in monitoring, which is the second portion. I mean, software can also, I mean, conversational AI can also flag things like the agent was speaking too much. When you are on a sales call, you've got to listen more than you speak. So using voice diarization, it knows that how much is the interval in which customer is speaking vis-a-vis how much is the interval in which agent is speaking. So these are items along monitoring. The last part is on actions. So for example, if Aman stays in Mumbai versus Aman is a resident of a relatively small town, let's say Kanpur, which is a relatively smaller city than Mumbai, the product requirements might be very different. You can't, for example, pitch an extremely high cost premium credit card to Aman from Kanpur. I mean, not that a Kanpur resident cannot afford, but there might be, the utility might be lesser. There might not be too many premium restaurants to use
personalization.
Yeah, exactly. So on the call, if Aman is speaking words like, "I am 26 years old, I am from Kanpur, I don't like to spend too much money," then you need to understand technology can assist you with that. If you keep on training agents, let's say you have a call center of 1,000 agents, which is not uncommon for large banks. It gets very difficult to train on all of these scenarios. Credit card is just one product. There are 50 other products: savings account, home loan, personal loan, and then there is a gamut of products for NRI, corporates, SMBs. I mean, it's nearly impossible. So there, AI can help agents listen to the call and take actions basis that. So all of these things fall under the domain of conversational AI, and there are very good solutions in the market which can assist at each step. So when it comes to automation now let me get into depth of some of these things. The first, so customers talk to businesses through two mechanisms. Number one is chat, and number two is call. So chat can happen on website, through mobile app, through WhatsApp. Today, businesses are getting messages from customers on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I mean, Twitter has become the de facto complaint portal, right? And even purchases, they are happening through all of these channels. I have myself booked a restaurant because their call center number was not available. So I messaged their Instagram page and I was able to get a booking, right? So all of these things are happening via chat, and conversational AI can be very effective. I mean, why should a human respond for a simple thing like, "I want to book a table for 2 people tomorrow"? So those things can be automated, right? Second thing happens on voice. So people call the call center, typically the 1800 number, and using voice bots, all of these most common queries of booking a reservation, knowing about the product, which are typically sales or pre-sales queries, they can be automated very, very effectively. So that's, I mean, those are the two avenues: chat and voice, and automation, monitoring, and taking an action. So it becomes a sort of 2x3 grid in which conversational AI can help.
Makes sense. Very interesting. Ishwar, talk to us about what you're seeing on the AI side on the deeper sales use cases, or I think because there's obviously a lot more data there as well, which is non-customer interaction, but more on the salesperson's performance and their own productivity.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of my favorite topics. But before I go there, what Aman said reminded me of something. I think at least in the West, people are getting ready for the metaverse. So there are sales avatars. So,
Right.
Aman was talking about chat and voice. There are video avatars that can, when metaverse becomes reality. I don't know if it becomes success or not. Assuming it becomes a success, you need avatars. You need video avatars, which are AI, enabled. I think that'll be an interesting trend to look out for in the next couple of years. But what I wanted to cover is that, there are three broad trends that are happening in sales tech. Sales tech is it's kind of a big domain in the West, so to speak, right? Because salespeople are really costly at this point in time. The first one is a type of AI that helps you with conversational intelligence. So you can think of Gong.ai. If you talk about India, you can think about Wingman. So these are companies that help you with conversational intelligence. They, like Aman was saying, all your conversations are anyway recorded at this point in time. You can do real-time transcription. But based on that, how do you train your salespeople? How do you derive intelligence out of it, and how do you sell better? So this is one trend that is definitely happening. I think folks, if you are interested, you should check out companies like Gong and Pingman.
Yeah.
The second interesting trend is revenue intelligence. So a whole bunch of stuff that used to be done by the sales operations team, that is still managed by the sales operations team, can now be improved with the help of an AI. So there are companies like Clary.ai, for example.
Clary, Aviso,
People.ai. So
People.
these are companies. So these are companies that help you look at your sales funnel. Historically, your sales ops people are supposed to look at your sales funnel and project, right? So these AI bots can now take a look at the conversations that are happening on your funnel, understand the intent, understand the type of conversations the salesperson is having with your customer, and try and predict based on some of the intent, based on historic data, which kind of frees up the sales ops person to do more impactful things, right? So a computer should do what a computer should do. A human being should do what only a human being can do. So I think technologies like this kind of enable your salespeople to play to their top notch instead of spending time on how do I project revenues going forward.
Right.
So these two are trends that are already in the market, in Western markets, and even some companies in India are already adopting it. Be it Exudel are trying to adopt it. My personal thing is the third one. Imagine a place where every salesperson has an assistant, right? Think of it. So one of the biggest problem, you're a sales leader, Rishabh.
Yeah.
I'm sure the number of times your people would not have updated your CRM. I'm sure you would be able to relate to this, right? And all the other sales leaders who are in the call.
Yeah.
Now imagine you get a micro nudge on your phone, where you can just talk on the phone and saying, this is what I got out of this conversation. This bot now does a text to speech, understands the intent, puts it back into your CRM. You're now you don't have to sit in front of a computer. You can now be having a cup of coffee and doing these micro nudges. Imagine your sales assistant bot now takes a look at all the sales funnel that you have and say, at this, it makes sense for you to call this customer at 11 in the morning and give you a micro nudge, right? I think these are the places where you can also call it productivity intelligence. But I think these are broadly the trends in which sales and AI are working together. It is no longer a trend. I think it's a reality now. The better we are able to follow this trend, the better sales teams we can build, is my opinion.
Wonderful. No, I absolutely agree, Ishwar. I think the last one, there was a point where I had an intern who I would send WhatsApp voice notes to update the CRM and set up tasks and next level. But it actually was high leverage because it was easier and there was no bot at the time. I know there's a Slack bot now that can send an alert or, hey, this deal has not been updated for 1 week. It is in a hot stage. What is going on? And it will sort of send you alert for that. So that is absolutely incredible. On the conversational intelligence piece, I think my only observation is that the technology is beautiful and it's there. My observation is that sales managers are not quite they need to train and get above a notch in order to start using it. Because I have a million call recordings and I can transcribe them and I can analyze them. But unless I am intentional about implementing that coaching and then measuring it every day, it's like, pressing a balloon. Once you remove your finger, the balloon will go back into whatever shape it is. So people fall back into old habits because the person implementing the technology, which is again going back to the human part of the sales trainer or sales manager, your biggest ROI, your biggest job is sales training. And we don't spend enough time training the trainer. We spend a lot of time training the salesperson. We don't spend enough time training the trainer. So which is where that is one of the only challenges that I see with implementation of conversational intelligence. I think revenue intelligence is absolutely fantastic, like what you said. I think, again, it is the only challenge, again, there is input output. Like if you have no data in your CRM, you can't really do anything with that information. So, which again is every sales leader's problem. But absolutely very, very excited to see how this plays out over longer in the next.
I think this is the future, Rishabh.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more because our time is limited. I think coming to the end of our conversation, really, what does this mean? Like you've done all this, you've implemented all this tech. How does it actually help your business, right? And again, going back to the first point where we said, when you get started, you have to measure what you manage. If you're not measuring it, you're never going to improve it. So measuring all of those pieces that we talked about, different aspects of your funnel, your conversion rates, all of those pieces, being intentional about that measurement becomes very important. Now, there are different metrics that you can track for salespeople, and I'm sure there are different metrics that you track for bots. Aman, can you share maybe a couple of examples of what are some of the metrics that you track for efficiency of bots?
Sure. So talking specifically on the sales use case, wherever we have deployed bots, see the top of the funnel metric is obviously number of visitors, number of users. If you go down a level, typical metrics are around how many leads are generated through bots, right? For example, for one of the largest housing finance companies, we almost tripled their lead generation by implementing a strong use case of a bot via Google Business Messaging. So by the way, Google is getting big into business messaging. So if you go to Google Maps and search for a business, they provide a chat button using which you can start chatting. Right, so it's a very effective tool to generate leads because everybody uses Google Maps, even
GMB and Google My Business Page and the calling thing also. Makes sense.
Exactly. So people like my father, I mean, even they use Google Maps previously. I mean, they will never search for a website, right? But they do use Google Maps and they can end up chatting with a business. So it becomes a very effective lead generation channel. Apart from that, in chatbots, you can have journeys of purchase, right? For example, mutual fund investment journey. So in fact, someone asked a question on chat. I saw that how can the length of the journey impact the drop-offs? It does impact. So I'll give you an example. In there are two customers of ours, which are both mutual fund companies. One has implemented a 5-step journey in implementation of purchase SIP, right? SIP investment, systematic investment plan, if you want to do through a chatbot. Other has a 12-step journey. Needless to say, the 12-step journey has only a fraction of asset under management, right? The number of people who are investing and the amount of money invested is much lower because the journey is longer. I mean, after 4 or 5 steps, I will myself give up. 12-step is a far longer journey. I mean, they have technology constraints because of which the journey is longer. But I mean, if the journey is long, nobody is going to buy. It's very simple. So that's one metric. Again, it's an industry-specific metric. Apart from that, in e-commerce, we have seen metrics like, for example, someone tries to make a purchase and then they drop off. We call it abandoned cart problem.
Abandoned cart, yeah.
Yeah, you can push them a message on WhatsApp. Hi, Aman, you were trying to purchase so-and-so mobile phone. We saw that you dropped off. Here is a coupon for you. Right, so those places, conversational AI can really help by pushing a message and then subsequently helping them complete the journey on WhatsApp itself. So those are some of the metrics. So using this, you can track that, okay, how many people dropped off, and of that, I sent message to 100 people. Of that, 20 purchased it, and how much revenue I got. So these
Makes
are
sense.
some of the metrics. I mean, they can be very wide depending on the industry.
Makes sense. No, absolutely. I think every metric has to be specific to the industry. I know that
Yes.
handover between AI and humans sometimes tends to break. Do you measure anything specific for that, where let's say a chat gets handed over from a bot to a human?
Yes, definitely. So in some of the clients, for example, we measure that of, let's say, 100,000 queries that came, a lakh queries, how many were handled by the chatbot itself and how many went to humans. So we keep a track on the percentage of those queries. This is slightly tricky because many times for simple queries also customers want to talk to a human agent.
Yeah.
So there is a fine line, but yes, that's a metric which is quite useful to track. I think a related metric could be when agents are not available, which is outside working hours. At that time, how many queries are you resolving for the customers? How
That's
many
a very good
purchases are you
metric.
making?
Yeah.
That's a very good metric. Yeah.
Yeah, because that
Sorry,
tells
you
you
were
that,
saying-
look, otherwise it would have gone down to zero. My sale after 9 p.m. would have gone down to zero, but I got a revenue of whatever 1 crores in a month after 9 p.m. Or from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. whatever, non-working hours. So those things you can directly attribute to conversational AI.
That's very interesting. Ishwar, were you saying something?
Yeah. No, I was just trying to imagine a situation where, let's say you have a sales phone number. After the day is over, you just forward it to a bot. The bot picks up the call, tries to answer. If it is not able to answer, then it schedules a meeting for you tomorrow.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the way the sales journeys are headed in the future.
Yeah, because customers expect you to be available. Sorry, Aman, go ahead.
No, please.
I was saying customers expect you to be available 24/7 because when I need the service, I need it now. I need to talk to someone now. So having like that response is great. Yeah, that was my only point.
Yeah. So on Ishwar's point, actually, we have customers who have implemented bot for following up with their customers to schedule a meeting. Literally, I mean, people come and they book an appointment for
and then they drop
with,
off.
And they drop off and they don't show up for a meeting. Like one of the banks, for example, they have a video banking system in which they assist in savings account opening. So customers book an appointment and then they drop off. So they are implementing a voice bot with us to sort of reach out to these customers to rebook another appointment.
Yeah, we've seen the same thing where Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Rishabh. You can extend the same analogy to recruitment and interviews. How many times have we no shows for interviews, right? Now imagine a bot that can follow up and schedule interviews and make sure, why did you not attend? Follow up on WhatsApp.
Absolutely. Recruitment equal to sales is, in fact,
it is
my philosophy also.
It is.
No, absolutely. I think 2 out of 3 appointments show up. 1 out of 3, like that's the drop-off rate. If you can even improve that by 10-15%, I know, sending reminders, following up, absolutely. And we see that happening all the time with lead qualification as well, where the lead goes to the agent, there's an appointment set, but the lead doesn't show up. So that happens all the time. On the sales monitoring side, fairly standard. Again, depends on what kind of business you're running, but you got to measure your funnel metrics, dials, calls, connects, conversations, conversion, the standard breakdown of those metrics. I think where, just because you have the ability to monitor calls doesn't mean you always have to, but you should be selective about which agents you do it for, because like we discussed, you as a sales manager have limited bandwidth. So seeing is someone not making the effort or not making enough dials, and that's why they're not connecting with enough calls, that's an area where you don't really need to see anything. It's just pure analytics. Versus if someone is connecting but not having enough conversations, which are at least 2 minutes long, right? Let's say you isolate that problem. Now it is very important for you to see what is it that people that are, picking up the phone and having 2-minute conversations versus people picking up the phone and getting hung up on. What is it that's different? Simple example. Someone called me the other day and asked me, "Aap kaise hai?" And I was just thrown off. I'm like, this is new. Nobody asked that question. Like, how are you doing? And literally, and I saw some research from one of the B2B sales companies, where this is one of the Gong type companies, which said that You cold call someone and you say, how's it going, Ishwar? Because it sounds like you've known this person from before. So you end up having that conversation. So so that is an area where you can isolate, call recordings for specific individuals and see what's going on. Or if someone is having good conversations but not converting, that's when you can isolate those call recordings and then see. I think selectively barging in and listening to conversations in real time happens a lot. I know it happens through a sampling system, but I've never been in a position, at least myself, where I've intentionally been alerted that something is off in this call. Now you go barge in. I've never done this before. I'm not sure how it plays on the salesperson's psyche where someone's looking over your shoulder. So I'm of a very different view here, but would love to understand if that is. I know it happens in the call center, floor all the time where people listen in selectively. But I personally am not of the view where you should be listening in to someone's conversation or whispering. But again, I know that every philosophy works differently for different team cultures. But would be curious to hear your thoughts on this, Aman, if you've sort of seen this happen at your end.
So, Rishabh, in some cases, actually, there is a compliance to listen to some of these calls.
Right. But in real time or post?
Post call.
Post is fine. Post is fine. I'm saying selectively barging in when a call is happening, when you're salesperson. That's where I'm a little bit iffy on that, but yeah. So
no. So I mean, in insurance, for example, a lot of mis-selling happens, right? So in some cases, they do have compliance to barge in real time as well, right? We were implementing something for a life insurance company where they have to look at some of these things where I mean, because IRD is going to fine you heavily if you mis-sell and they detect it. Right. Yeah. So it's for the sales agent, obviously it's quite intimidating. The objective here is not to intimidate the person, but to ensure compliances. But in unregulated industries, for example, it might lead to the salesperson getting conscious and not being able to perform to their peak. I mean, it's like the stage fear many of us have, where they can't speak in front of a large audience because they fear if they go wrong, it will create a chaos. It will create a bad situation. So startups, I mean, there are startups who are doing many such things. In one of the startups, for example, I sort of mentor, they have a very interesting solution in which in real time, AI will sort of barge into the call, listen to the calls and give you feedback on the screen that, okay, you are going too fast.
That's, I know.
So I mean, but I mean, at least the sales agent does not feel offended because of that. They take it as a feedback rather than a criticism.
Absolutely. I think that's what, so it goes back to the point where AI is assisting the sales trainer by doing their job for them, by selectively probing and saying, hey, you should be talking about pricing right now, or you haven't done this, or you're going too fast, or let the other person talk. Or like, so almost like verticalization of Zoom has become a whole stack in itself where people start tracking eye movements to see if someone is getting distracted. Like Ishwar's distracted right now. Can you bring him back? Like he's zoning out of the conversation. Like that's actually happened, which is very interesting. Slightly creepy, but interesting for salespeople. So it is what it is. But I think very, very interesting. I think we've talked about success metrics high level. I know we've come up on time as well, so I want to be cognizant of that. Very quickly, high level, Aman, can you give us like maybe one example or two examples of like what kind of impact can it have if done well? And I think more than that, I'd love to understand common challenges or mistakes that people make when they think about deploying this, because I think that's really where we can really educate the market on what not to do or what mistakes to avoid as well.
Sure. So I think I mentioned the example of abandoned cart, right? So in one of the companies, we saw that previously they used to push these messages via SMS and now they do via WhatsApp. SMS is not really conversational, it's one directional. In WhatsApp, you can deploy conversational AI, which not only pushes a message, but also helps complete the journey. So we saw like an uptick of 70% compared to SMS, right? In terms of revenue numbers. In another AMC, which is a mutual fund company, asset management company, so they in 1 month had grown their asset under management by 16 crore rupees via chatbot. So people started investing lump sum SIP through chatbot. So people who dropped off on the website, they pushed a message to them. It's similar to abandoned cart, but for mutual funds. So those are some of the metrics which people should track. I think revenue metrics, conversion metrics, those are the most important. what I think should be avoided is tracking vanity metrics like how many people are using the bot. I think it's a vanity metric. It doesn't help. Bottom of the funnel metrics are the ones which are most important, is what I would say.
Right. Any common mistakes that you both have seen where people like deploy stuff for the sake of deploying stuff because it's the fancy new buzzword and make mistakes in the process?
Ishwar, you want to take this?
No, I think I already gave an example, right? Somewhere earlier in the conversation. If your call is not getting connected, you don't want to talk to a bot. Yeah. So I think Aman, with his large experience, might be a better person to comment on this.
Yeah.
On conversational AI.
Absolutely. I think many large enterprises we have seen, they deploy AI for the sake of AI because they want to be called as AI first. The use case is usually not clear. The volumes are lesser. For example, if you have 1,000 customer base, let's say B2C example I'm taking, 1,000 monthly active users, very early stage companies, they start looking for automation. I think it's too early. Should not be done. At that stage, it's the best that, in fact, I would go to the extent that with so less number of customers, as a founder, I myself will talk to every customer, I will take every call. At that stage, you're still establishing product market fit, and automating things may not make sense. These are the things. Automation should be done when once you have hit a critical scale, you know that all of the things are now sort of built into processes, and you want more repetition of processes where technology can help. So, and second thing, which mistakes I have seen is people telling us that, can I deploy a bot which will eliminate my sales team? So that doesn't work. Expectation setting is to be done for the customer. I have seen many companies have technology people implementing these projects, pure technology people, and that's where things go wrong. Some business person should get involved. As a techie, obviously, I will expect everything to get automated. And thus, one of the key takeaway of this webinar, we also discussed, technology is not replacing humans, it is making them more efficient. So that's the second, I would say, pitfall, which people, or a mistake which businesses should not fall for.
Makes sense. Wonderful. I know we've come up on time, but I think maybe we can make time for a couple of questions from the audience. I know we have one or two on chat coming in where keeping a journey short or long, I think we've answered that. Vikas talks about Aviso AI catching up in Rev Intelligence, makes a lot of sense. Any questions from the audience, please feel free to put it in chat. Otherwise, I know we had a hard stop at 4, so we can wrap up, and we're going to give maybe a couple of seconds, maybe like a minute to get questions pouring in. But a very, very insightful, gents. I think I really loved your point, Aman, on make sure a business person is involved, because if just the tech team is involved in setting up the bot, it could lead to a disaster. I think that is spot on, because they don't understand the pain that a sales team faces on a day-to-day basis, right? They can have a wild notion of how you can automate everything, but we're very far from that reality.
And Rishabh, I think it works the other way too. It is imperative that salespeople and sales leaders are now conversant with what is happening in the market, be up to date with how AI can help, or AI ML can help sales do better. Gone are the days where you have an IT team, you give the requirement to the IT team to get it implemented. As salespeople, we need to understand what is happening in the market today.
Right. Makes sense. I think we have a question from Vikas. Challenges with IVR deflection to platforms like WhatsApp. I'm not fully sure if I understand this question, but I think this is for the Exital team. I don't know what IVR deflection means, but
I'll take that question. Question, Rishabh. So basically, IVR deflection is when you get a call from the customer, and you don't want to answer that call, and you say, "Hey, Aman, for instant resolution," you push a message to them on WhatsApp, or ask them to push a message on WhatsApp. See, the challenge is when you do this with a frustrated customer. One needs to identify that a customer who is, let's say, already a user for since 6 months or 12 months, if they are calling you for something, there's a good chance that it is for a complaint. And in such situation, deflecting to bots is the worst idea. So companies should, so here is what businesses should do to solve this problem. First thing is that from wherever customer is trying to reach out, they should be logged in one single system, so that whenever they reach out, you know that, okay, 3 hours ago, they had also called, the call did not get through. 2 hours ago, they had written an email, because that's how you will be able to segment the customers. So let's say if I'm getting a call from Aman for the first time, I can probably deflect. But if I know that Aman wrote an email, Aman did a call today afternoon, and now Aman is again calling in the evening, I should not deflect it, because this customer clearly seems to be wanting to escalate and they are frustrated. So those are some of the nuances which we should look for in IVR deflection. Second thing is that if the sales process is a little complicated for that business, then this should not be done, IVR deflection. This is for low ticket size items, e-commerce and businesses which are relatively simple and straightforward, where a chatbot can actually sell and close the conversation, close the purchase. If it cannot do, then one should not deflect to the chatbot on WhatsApp.
Makes sense. Yeah. Wonderful. So we have no more questions. I know we've come up on time, so I wanna call this off for now. But I think we have a new question. Sorry, just when I said this was a thank you.
He just mentioned that.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks Vikas for taking the time. But thanks to you both for showing up, and this was a really great session. I think very incredible takeaways for me, especially. What we normally do is we'll try to turn this into a blog as well as send recordings to everyone who registered, so we still have this handy. And we should totally think about what, like, each slide in this webinar is a webinar on its own. So we should think about what next we can do. And if we get ideas from the audience, we'd be happy to pick that up as well. But thank you so much, Ishwar and Aman, for your time. It's been incredible to have you both here, and let's talk soon.
Thanks, Rishabh. Pleasure hanging with you.
Chalo. All right. Take care. Have a good one.
Thank you, Rishabh, and thanks to the audience. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.